So awesome. It is really great to see so many folks here in the call, and also great to see quite a few of our long-term members and some pro members in here as well. So really good to have you with us here at the 10x Shift, and thank you to everybody who's joining this. This is our inaugural 10x Shift workshop that we are running here at OpenExO, and our whole reason for being at OpenExO is to build exponential organizations. And so we're here to help you to build your exponential organization, or to help you help others to build their exponential organization. And so it is really great to have you all with us. Kent, if I don't know if you want to also just share a little bit as we're getting everybody ready here to jump into the workshop today.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Kent Langley. I'm one of the co-founders here at OpenExO, along with Salim, who you'll meet very shortly. And I have been working on this project with Salim for almost a decade. And we've built many EXOs over the time. But we're extremely excited about this new direction that we've got, the 10x Shift program. And I can't tell you how exciting it is to see all of you here. Today's program is going to be all about actually starting your journey, stepping one step at a time into becoming an EXO. And I hope for a lot of engagement. I really hope everybody gets their camera on. It really makes a big difference when we can all see you when you're speaking, and even if you're not speaking, it helps to be able to see just like it would in a real room. Over the years, I think Salim will talk a little bit more about this, but we've seen so many companies go through this transformation to exponential organizations very successfully. We've also seen companies who didn't get it quite as well, but that's what this is going to fix, so you won't end up like one of those as you try to make your journey. And I think overall, what I'm most excited about is just kind of getting to know over time what all of you are about, what businesses you're running, what EXOs you're trying to build, if you're coaches or consultants, what types of clientele you're trying to serve. So that's how we'll get to know each other. This is a great first step, and I'm super happy to see all of you. So welcome.
Amazing. Thanks, Kent. I have just shared my screen to share the workbook for today. And we will be running through this workbook as we go through today's workshop. And the first part of the workbook is really to ask yourself, well, where exactly am I right now? And so we have taken this part of the workbook, and we have created a poll here right in Zoom, which I have just launched now. So if you could go ahead, spend the next minute just completing this poll. Not only does it help us to really understand where the audience is today, so that we can make sure that we are tailoring the way today goes accordingly, but it is also a great way for you to understand exactly where you are right now, and so that we can move from here. So this is a bit of the baseline today, where we will be starting. So if you can go ahead, you should be able to see that poll pop up on your screen. And so, yeah, we will give you about a minute or so to complete that, and then we will introduce Salim and really kick things off. So that's really nice to see. The numbers are starting to tick up. It was a bit quiet there for a while. It's good to see the numbers.
If people want to actually do the poll on their phone, Kevin, I popped a QR code into the chat.
I don't really understand what's the difference between linear, incremental, and exponential. I'm sorry. But, if you can elaborate.
No apology necessary. We're going to get into that. So click linear for today, for the moment, and then we'll find out as we go along.
Or you can say you're not sure.
Or you can say you're not. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
That's what I said.
Going on about.
Yeah, so it's okay to be not sure. That's why we're all here. This is definitely a key topic.
Mm.
And just as a little housekeeping, when you're not speaking in a large group call, if you could just hit your microphone there and mute yourself, that would be helpful.
Awesome.
I just check.
Right.
I was mostly finished, and then
went
it told me
away.
that this was recording, and then it just disappeared.
Yeah, it's good.
Survey vanished.
It vanished. It did indeed.
The poll disappeared.
Yeah,
That's what happened to all of us.
that happened to all of us. Okay, not just me then. Phew.
Oh,
Okay.
entering my profound thoughts. They're gone.
Oh, Paul, I'm so sorry. So sorry, CN. I'm going to stop it then. And we're going to have to give Zoom a bit of a shout. So apologies for that, folks. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I am going to invite Salim to kick us off with the opening here today about the exponential awakening. You will see in page 3 and 4 of the workbook, if you have it open, there are some questions there to use as prompts to write notes as Salim is sharing. And please do use the chat so that we can answer any questions in the chat whilst Salim is going. So Salim, straight over to you.
All right, welcome everybody. I'm going to do something a little bit retro. If I could see a show of hands like this, if you've heard me speak before, just to get some sense of it. Okay, many of you, that's great. Excellent. All right, that allows me to calibrate a bit. All right, so what I want to do is just lay the groundwork for the why of all of this. I think let me share my screen here and see if I can manage to do this. We live in a kind of a pretty surreal time, obviously. We're pretty clear that this is the biggest inflection point for humanity, this next 20, 30 years. I was having a chat with SoftBank and Masa. The founder has a 300-year vision. And I was like, great to have that 300 vision. Let's get through the next 30 years if we can, and then we can explore the bigger picture. And so we've got interesting times ahead of us, obviously. I want to give some contextual framing for why this is happening and why now. So let me see if I can get this up and live. Hopefully you can all see that. All right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right, good. All right, so a bit about me. I'm from India originally, Canadian, 10 years in Europe, 20 years in the US. I've lived in 8 countries for more than a year each, so I'm quite confused. Journey really starts, I was the head of innovation at Yahoo running their incubator, and I came across a problem that is driving me crazy, and many of you face today, which is when you try anything disruptive in a big organization or a legacy organization, the immune system attacks you, right? Because all of our organizations are built to resist change. And what struck me was, obviously, many of us have seen this at banks or telcos, but Yahoo is a Silicon Valley company less than 10 years old. Why should it have this problem? And over the years, we've recognized that problem is cultural and exists even in the public sector. We have bankers fighting Bitcoin, we have taxis fighting Uber, and we're just not progressing society along quickly enough because of that kind of immune system response. So I went from Yahoo to helping build out Singularity University, and was there for about 7 years, leading most of the programs. I see some familiar faces from folks that have been to those programs, and wrote Exponential Organizations on the back of that. And the basic thesis was that we're starting to see a new breed of organizations emerge that we've never seen before, where they can scale their organizations as fast as you can scale technology, right? We now know how to scale technology very, very well, and we can go from 1 user to 1 million users fairly easy. But scaling the actual organization has always been painfully incremental and linear. And I'll talk a little bit more about that model. But let me set the stage for why this is happening and why now. And it comes down to this particular graph. This was put together by Ray Kurzweil. Hopefully you've all seen this. The thesis being that we are seeing a new breed of organization, and driven by technology, specifically by Moore's law, which Ray tracked all the way back to 1900 and found that we've been doubling computational price performance for like 100 years. And what struck him was that the curve and the shape of this curve is incredibly predictable and steady and just keeps trucking along. By the way, that's an exponential y-axis or a logarithmic y-axis. So it's almost like a vertical line if you had to graph it linearly, right? And so it doesn't make sense. We've had wars and recessions and ups and downs in the industry. You should see a very jagged stock market type shape. Why are we seeing such incredibly predictable progress? And so he studied this for 10 years and came up with a fundamental thesis that's driving a lot of our thinking, which is you take a domain discipline technology area and you power it with information technologies, the price performance starts doubling. And once that happens, it doesn't stop, it just keeps going. And that is very hard for us to get our heads around. The secret as to why that keeps going inexorably is in the different bands of technology. So we've gone from relays to vacuum tubes to transistors, now integrated circuits, and each one is an S-curve. And it turns out that once a technology takes off and reaches its upper limits, if you have an information-based paradigm, some other technology always comes along and takes over the curve. Right? So for example, in solar energy, you'll hear people talking about, oh, there's only so many silicon panels we can create. We have rare earth limitations, etc. And along comes the next technology, which is called perovskite, which is actually a kind of a salt, which is very cheap and easy to make. And it turns out to have better conductive properties than solar panels. And we can now bridge into this next technology, and the curve will just keep going. By the way, solar energy has been doubling every 22 months in its price performance, and has been doing that for 40 years. So a lot of the rationale you see around the cheap costs in solar are driven by that paradigm. At this pace, we will be able to deliver all of the world's needs using solar in 8 years. We're literally 4 doublings away. My thesis on why Russia's invading Ukraine now is they have to. In a few years, their oil and gas won't be worth very much. So doing it now is necessary to prop up the price of oil, etc. So you can see the broader ramifications from this. This curve and the association and the observation that Ray Kurzweil made that this curve is now operating in a dozen technologies led Peter Diamandis to write this book, Abundance, charting out that if we can harness this acceleration, we'll soon get to an abundance of healthcare, education, clean water, energy in about a decade, right? And what does that world look like? I joined the board of XPRIZE a few years ago, which I joke that every board meeting now starts with what did Elon just do, and then we have to process that before we can get to the rest of the business of the day. We had this week on Monday the finals of the carbon extraction XPRIZE. So we had 1,300 teams compete for $100 million to see who could create a solution that would extract carbon at scale out of the atmosphere. Okay. And it was incredible. That many teams, 20 teams made it to the finals, and we awarded the finalists and we awarded the money. So we now have 20 viable solutions in rock sequestering, air, seawater, soil that are all trying to sequester carbon and finding a business model around that. Another prize that's out right now is the $101 million prize for anybody that can successfully reverse aging by 20 years each in musculature, neural retention, and immune system. And so we think that prize will be won in about 4 years, by the way. So don't get hit by a bus would be my directive for all of you in the next little while. So this is the kind of the broader implications. There's a fundamental thesis that we have is that technology is a major driver of progress in the world. Right? It might be the only major driver of progress. And now we have a dozen technologies operating on an exponential basis. This is why you'll see us getting very bubbly and excited about it. The challenge with exponential growth is incredibly hard to get our heads around it. Our cognitive brains are not meant for this. We are good at linear extrapolation. We're really bad at exponential extrapolation. So for example, if you take a piece of paper, A4, 8.5 or by 11, whatever, and you fold it, that 0.1 millimeters becomes 0.2 millimeters, right? And they fold it again, it becomes 0.4 millimeters. Run a little thought experiment in your head and ask the question, how thick is that if you fold it 50 times? Okay. And most people kind of go, I don't know, maybe the size of a room, maybe it's like a building, maybe it's a kilometer. At 13 folds, you're a meter. At 20 folds, you're a football field. and pretty quickly at the 50th fold, you're at the sun. Okay. Now, granted, it's hard to fold that 50th time, but that's a crazy number, and most people intuitively will not get that. And yet, that's what's possible if you can harness that exponential growth. Part of this workshop is to set your foundation of your organization so you can achieve that type of outcome without thinking about it, because most people aren't able to get their heads around that. Just back to technology for 1 second, which is, I want to just stress again, we have a dozen technologies that are now operating on this Moore's Law type dynamic. And each of them is doubling on their own. Where they intersect, you get a whole other multiplier to the equation, right? And so this unbelievable things happening around this. The best metaphor we've seen for this is the shift we had from film photography to digital photography, where you're operating in a scarcity physical chemical image on a film, and then you move to the information substrate, and marginal cost goes to zero. The cost goes to near, becomes free to take a photograph. Now we take billions of times more photographs, but more importantly, change the problem space. Okay, and what I mean by that is, when we were doing film photography, the big problem was, how do I take the best photograph? Like, it costs $1 a photograph, takes a few days to get your prints back. And you have a bunch of business models cropping up around that scarcity. I might sell expensive cameras. I might offer courses on photography. I might publish books on composition. Then you move to digital photography, and all of those problems disappear. And the problem we have in digital photography, many of us, is that we have 5 copies of our photographs on 6 different online services, and you cannot find anything, right? And in that shift, all those old business models gone. Nobody can make money selling courses on photography today, right? That's the transition we're seeing in domain after domain, technology after technology, industry after industry. The music business may be the best example, where we used to sell 7 or 8 major music studios used to sell scarcity. They'd sell you the cassette or the CD or the DVD. Then we digitize music, and now we have 2 platforms, iTunes and Spotify, delivering abundance on a subscription model. That transformation we expect to see in transportation, energy, healthcare, education, you name it. So if you're thinking about building a business, think about that transition that's happening already. Okay. Now, let me touch on AI for a second. The real reason, we have not had an upgrade in our brain in about 50,000 years. So that's one rationale for it. We have a lot of old biases and issues with our human cognition. We suffer from positivity bias. We think the world is going to be great, etc. The real reason is we have a tsunami of data hitting us. Okay. If you're a cancer doctor, it turns out there is 2,500 cancer research papers published every day, and you have no hope in reading those. You need an AI to read those for you and tell you, for these 5 patients that you have, these are the most relevant. Okay. I have some broad observations about AI. I won't go heavily into this. I don't believe it achieves consciousness, mostly because we have no idea what consciousness is, but it will radically transform business, and you can see that across the board. I feel we believe in the next 5 years, there's going to be 2 types of companies: those that are using AI deeply in everything they do, and those that don't exist. It's pretty binary the way it's going forward. Okay. I don't want to go through all of these, but you get a general sense of these. The intersections of these are where you're seeing major new products and applications growing. The problem is that the implication of these intersections is pretty profound, right? I use the framing of a Gutenberg moment. In the 20th century, the printing press completely changed the world. In the 15th century, sorry. And we call that a Gutenberg moment because of the fundamental transformation it instigated in society. Well, AI fundamentally changes the world. Blockchain fundamentally changes the world. Solar energy fundamentally changes the world. And as far as we can figure, there's about 20 of these hitting us at the same time. Okay. And so this is a huge implication. It took us 100 years to absorb the printing press into society. Okay. So, by the way, that was the most violent century in the history of humanity, was the 100 years after the printing press was involved. So it's tricky times ahead. And how do we absorb all of this? As far as we can see, this will wash away all the institutions by which we run the world. That's why we're seeing so much tension in the world today, is all of the mechanisms, legal systems, healthcare systems, intellectual property systems, all washing away in front of this. Education is broken. Journalism is broken. We can't spot an institution that survives this. Okay. E.O. Wilson, the very famous biologist, I think put this best. He said the problem with society is our emotions are Paleolithic, or institutions are medieval and our technology is godlike. And if you think about it, all the problems in the world come from the gaps between those three layers. As leaders, we're going to spend the next 20 years dealing with those gaps, and how do we navigate this? Okay, so that's kind of the key point. I want to give you one more piece of data as to how hard this is to spot. And if you're running a company, this will start to make sense to you. This graph is the actual, what you see in the black is the actual growth of solar energy into the world, right? Just complete every Silicon Valley startup revenue projections look like this. The colored lines are the projections of the top energy experts as to the future of solar. Okay? And you can see that every time solar goes vertical, all the experts become really French and they go, no, pas possible, and it's going to level off now. And then it goes up vertical again and they go, no, now it's going to level off. And year after year after year after year, the reality is vertical, and all the projections from all the experts, which all of our companies are filled with experts in those domains, all go linear. Okay. And this is something where I'm picking here on the energy industry, but this is the same in mobile phone projections, internet bandwidth, you name it. Whenever you see exponential growth, the experts go not possible. And by the way, let me note, these are the top energy experts in the world. These are not lay people. So if I got this badly wrong year after year, I should lose my job, right? And so how do we deal with that? That's the huge aspect of the disruption around this. It's really hard to see in many cases. AI is making it a lot easier. So we have what Peter calls the 6Ds. We have a disruptive, deceptive, democratized, demonetized, dematerialized future coming to hit us. I'll give you this one little tidbit. If you've not read this book, I'd encourage you to go check it out. Jeff Booth showed that monetary systems are going to fail. And his fundamental observation was that every dollar increase in GDP globally over the last 50 years has come with a $4 increase in debt. Okay, we're growing the global economy with debt. Try going to a bank and saying, lend me $1 million and I'll give you back $250K. And how quickly will you be shown the door? And really, it turns out the root cause of this was Moore's Law. When they floated off the gold standard in the 1970s, they did not realize, and maybe they couldn't have, that technology was deflationary. Okay, so if I borrowed $10 million to build a TV factory and my business model I could sell those TVs at $1,000 each. A year later, I can only sell those TVs at $500 each. And a year later, those same TVs are $250 each. I can never pay back the $10 million. Okay, that's the problem with our fiat currencies. The only tool left to central banks is to print more money. And so we're deflating all of our currencies at a very radical level, which is why Bitcoin is doing very well. Okay, so I just want to give you this quick sense that the world is coming into the most radically disruptive, uncertain future that we've ever seen. It's hard to predict even next week what's going to happen, right? So the big challenge becomes, what do you do about it? How do you adapt to this world? And this is where we focused on the book. This quote from David Rose has been stuck in our heads for about 15 years now. And he said that he's from New York, so David's a bit dramatic, and many of you know David, but his root point is correct. If you're architected for success in a slow, stable world where industries didn't change, and the markets didn't change, and your business model didn't change, well, today you're not going to make it, because everything is changing very, very radical pace. You can see the speed at which these AI models are being out of date as an indicator of this, right? So we wrote the original book in 2014 and analyzed the 100 fastest growing unicorns in the world and teased out the model of what's now called the exponential model. We'll touch on this a bit more, but you have this massive transformative purpose at the top. We found all of them have an MTP. On the right, you see 5 externalities that allow you to keep a very small footprint and scale very quickly. Airbnb is tapping into other people's bedrooms. Uber is not hiring its own staff, etc. And on the left are the control mechanisms that help you drive culture and manage the control systems. Decentralized org structures, lean startup thinking, constantly testing assumptions, OKRs and dashboards to track the company, et cetera, et cetera. We launched the second edition 2 years ago. We had a bunch of implications around this, but basically what an EXO allows you to do is scale an organization at least 10 times faster than your peers in the same space. That's the basic fundamental definition. We've seen over the decade billion-dollar companies emerging that are picking on one or two of these and just focusing heavily on these, right? Uber, staff on demand, OpenAI using algorithms, et cetera, and we've seen the unbelievable value that can come. We have very clear evidence that the more you use, the more value you'll create. Okay, bunch of implications in this. Note number 6: smaller beats bigger. Okay, we found that small teams and small organizations outperform big companies. You can see how OpenAI beat out Microsoft, Google, Meta, et cetera. We have another set of implications in the second one. I won't go through these, but number 16 is relevant. Jeff Bezos said the success of Amazon is a function of how many experiments we run. And we don't, as leaders, we do not run enough experiments in our organizations. The future of leadership is going to be running 100 experiments and gathering the data and ruthlessly going to where the data is. Okay. We close the book with a section on leadership, right? What matters to the greatest leaders? How do they become the greatest leaders in the world? And you could argue, and we argue, that really it's their mindset. If you put one of these great leaders in a desert with no money, they'll figure out how to get out of there, right? And we've identified 6 mindsets for the road ahead. These are fairly obvious, many of them. Let me touch on number 3, the exponential mindset, which is the mindset that Elon Musk uses to build companies. His methodology is incredibly simple. Look at a technology that's growing exponentially, be it solar energy, lithium-ion batteries, neural bandwidth, etc. Look at 10 years. Where will that technology be on a 10-year price performance curve? And then build a company to intercept that curve. Okay, because it kind of takes 10 years to build a global company. He just does that over and over again. It's absurdly simple. Non-trivial to last the 10 years. I will grant you that. But it's incredible what you can do if you have that mindset and can apply that. And what's great about Elon, notwithstanding all the political chaos, is that he's teaching millions and millions of entrepreneurs that kind of very simple technology, that methodology. And now we have disruptive innovation coming from every corner in the world in a really dramatic way. Okay. Let me show how this model applies and what we've learned over the last 10 years. This is GitHub, which was the highest scoring EXO that we ever saw. Okay. It uses all 11 attributes. Microsoft bought this company a few years ago for $7.5 billion. And I remember talking to the accounting team that was managing the acquisition, and the CFO was literally freaking out. And he's like, I can't authorize this acquisition because they have no assets, barely. They've got barely no workforce, and they have no intellectual property. What am I going to put on the balance sheet? And they were literally trying to kill the acquisition until Satya said, you're buying the $30 million developer community. That will be useful to us down the line. Just shut up and do it. So they got it done. And as now they have AI, all of those resource code bases in GitHub become unbelievably valuable. And now you have unbelievable capabilities coming along, right? So this was about 8 or 9 years old. And look at the value creation there. And of course, we've got hundreds of examples of this. This is Robert Goldberg, who goes into mid-market industrial American manufacturing companies, heartland companies, and uses this model. And instead of typical 15% PE style outcomes, he's getting venture style outcomes. He's getting 10 to 30 times outcomes. And he's done it with 40 companies. His MTP is to reinvent American exceptionalism, because he feels that this model allows you to de-risk innovation and really radically change the game in even existing manufacturing companies. And he's like literally a living example of this. Then you come to big companies. And we actually ranked the Fortune 100 against the EXQ survey, which we'll talk about a bit later. This is the Fortune 100 ranked by how flexible, scalable, adaptable, purpose-driven are the org structures of these companies. So is Target using community? Is John Deere using an MTP, etc.? I did a segment on CNBC Squawk Box's stock market program presenting this index. One of our community members, Chandra Nagpal, who's out of Switzerland, tracked for 7 years the top 10 companies that use these characteristics the most over that 7-year period, and the bottom 10 that use these the least. Right? So really the most flexible and agile and purpose-driven versus the least over a 7-year period. And then you look at the results. The bottom row should blow your mind, right? So just in the Fortune 100, the companies that use these characteristics deliver 40 times the shareholder returns than the ones that don't. And if we should have built an index fund on this, and in fact, we still should. But basically, it's pretty clear that if you're not building an organization in this style, somebody else is going to do 40 times better than you, right? It's pretty obvious right there. And this is public data. Like, you couldn't make this up if you tried. Okay. But when we talk to big companies, we typically have a bunch of suggestions: update your leadership, etc. I'm just going to touch on number 2, which is do not do disruptive change inside the organization. Do it at the edge, pointing into adjacent spaces. Apple is the master of this. They will form a small team that's very disruptive, put the team at the edge of the company, keep them secret, and say to them, go disrupt another company. Right? And that's what they do over and over again. And so we talk to big companies, and reshape yourself so you can spin these things off the edge. If you're a smaller, medium-sized organization, you can transform yourself pretty quickly and get everybody on the same page. Hopefully, the EXO becomes the new gravity center, and we've seen that happening a bunch of people at times. When I talk about immune system, this is what I'm talking about. You try and do something disruptive in a big company or a legacy environment. By the way, when I say big company, anything over 50 people is a big company. Okay, so anything over 50 people, you have an immune system problem. And so we focus on we've actually solved this problem. If you're aware, we have a 10-week engagement that we piloted with Procter & Gamble. We've done it 60 times now with big companies around the world, and we found a way of hacking culture at scale. Okay. This is the negative example of why not to do it. So Marriott Hotels is worth about $80 billion today. If they had spun out TripAdvisor, Booking.com, Airbnb, they'd be worth almost 4 times as much. And the reason we use this example is that all of those ideas for Airbnb, TripAdvisor, etc., were sitting inside Marriott, but the immune system would not let them out. So for fear of cannibalizing the existing model, they're leaving almost 4x on the table. So for big companies, this is the imperative to solve. This is why small companies and medium-sized companies have all the advantage today. You're not stuck with that same scale of control framework problem. Okay, this is why Kevin calls this the decade of the EXO, because this is what's possible today. So I'm going to pause there. I hope you've gotten some sense of why we see the world change so radically, the broader implications, but more importantly, a tool set and a real framework for what you can do about it. So I'm going to pause there, pass it back to you guys. I hope I didn't take too long, and we're ready to go next. Did I hit my time limit?
No.
Awesome, Salim. A little bit over, and so I was going to ask you to keep your slides up there and head back to the EXO model. We're going to dive a little bit more deeply into that as we get into today's workshop, especially starting with the Massive Transformative Purpose. But we are now set to go to a quick breakout, and the aim of the breakout is to really discuss with some folks who are here on the call today about exactly what you've heard, where you are in your business, and how you could leverage at least one of the EXO attributes. So I know we haven't dived deeply into them, and we will get into those in a bit more detail. But having a look at these attributes, it's obviously starting with the Massive Transformative Purpose, and then your external attributes, leveraging staff on demand, looking at how you leverage community, leveraging AI and algorithms, or using leveraged assets or engagement. And then internally, do you have a really good interface? How are your dashboards? Do you know exactly what's going on? Are you consistently experimenting? Kent's favorite. Or do you have autonomy in your teams? And then are you using social technologies? And so we're going to jump into a breakout session. And if you jump over to, I think it is, which page is it in the workbook? It is page 5 in the workbook, and I can quickly share my screen quickly and show you what is there on page 5. Where are you? Share screen button. If we look at that right over here, so the questions that you're going to go through in the time you're in the breakout, which is just going to be 8 minutes, is where is your business today? What's your biggest challenge? And what EXO attribute really excites you the most? And so I am going to go ahead and open up those breakout rooms. And when you see the blue button that says you've got 120 seconds left, don't click it. You'll come back to the room. That's just reminding you, okay, it's time to wrap up the conversation. So we will see you all in 8 minutes' time. You should see a pop-up coming up onto your screen now. Welcome back, everybody. I hope that you got to meet someone interesting. You got to have some interesting conversations. And so we will take the next minute or two to give folks some time to share if there was anything super interesting that you spoke about in your breakout room. So if there is anybody who wants to share, do just you can use the raise hand button and then unmute yourself so we can get some sharing here on the call today. Or is everyone a bit shy? Gijs, I have to call you out. So you on a treadmill?
Yes, I am.
Tell you what, I'll go quickly then before other ones go in.
Who's talking?
It's Kian.
Hi, Kian. And Kenneth, you can go next.
Hello. Listen, thank you very much for that. First of all, it was brilliant. Just had a lovely chat with a gentleman, Mark and Nick. And Mark was just saying that he's been involved in this stuff for a while. And the massively transforming, MTP, massively transforming, what's the purpose? Was the key thing. And I've certainly found that to be the case. I haven't been doing exponential stuff for about 10 years based on the first book. But experimentation is the one that I'm struggling with at the moment, or not struggling, but one I really want to bring into my business. So if others have got any stories of how they've managed to get experimentation in, like really at scale, I would love to hear that. But no, it was really good. Loved a little breakout. Thank you.
Oh, fantastic.
Amazing. Kent, I said that's your favorite. Maybe you can give 5 seconds there.
Ooh, so first and foremost, it's really important to remember, Ken, that the experimentation attribute is really very much in the spirit of the scientific method. And if you look at the tool that we created that was shared as part of the materials for this, there's a whole framework there that you can go around that loop and run experiments in your company. The thing that's probably not written somewhere, maybe in the tool or what have you, is to keep those first experiments small so you can actually win. And winning is not about them being right or even quite honestly successful in their thesis or hypothesis as an experiment. It's about finishing the experiment and knowing, did it work? Did it not work? Discard, keep. And if you imagine kind of a major minor mental model, so that you have a larger experiment running at the beginning, you expect to take no more than 3 months. Do your best guessing. And then maybe in that 3 months, you could run 12 small experiments and then have everybody that's running an experiment working with a buddy so that there's pairs of people, and then make sure those same 2 people split up and work with others over time. Depends on how many people in your company, what you can really do here. This is how you get that ethos, that modality, that mental model moving. And you will find that you start to see more and more experiments going. Celebrate the failures as well as the successes. Don't ever forget that. And because you're trying to get people to not be so scared to try something new. And that is it. So that's the very, very short version, Kevin.
Awesome, Kent. And Kenneth, if you want to share.
Yes, I've been a coach for over 20 years. My expertise is consultative selling, and that's what I've been doing. But I always said to my clients, I want to be the best strategic partner, asset and resource for them. And I just decided, I need more. I need to learn more stuff. So I was attracted to the EXO book, and I said, I can hire maybe a AI person, but I started thinking, I've got expertise in sales and coaching. Maybe I should learn this stuff. And so I'm right now studying preparing to launch an AI agency. So I'm going to marry sales, some marketing, along with AI, and then add EXO and be a consultant for that. So my MTP is changing the lives of business owners and entrepreneurs, and it's through sales, it's through EXO, and it's through AI. So I'm embracing that. I'll just stop there. I'm pretty excited about it though, but it's a lot of work.
Kenneth, one of my first cousins' name is Kenneth Brown. So when I saw you there, I was like, my cousin's here? No, I was pretty shocked. But anyway,
your cousin?
I'm
not your cousin? Oh, okay. Sorry to disappoint you.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
I'll work on that.
No, and I mean, no business can do anything without sales. So,
yes.
And so with that, we're gonna move on so that we do finish as close to on time today. And ultimately, where we're going to move to now is that North Star of an exponential organization. And Kent is going to take us through looking at the Massive Transformative Purpose, or the MTP. And so this is 6 to 9 in your workbook, and page 6 to 9, 6 to 17, I think, in your workbook. And so, Kent, I am going to spotlight you, and you can do your fancy stuff there, and take things away.
All right. Hello again, everyone. We're going to be talking about the MTP a little bit, and I think this is one of those ones where everybody should be able to follow along. And so I'll bring up some slides, and this is the slides that Kevin has just shown. These are the key attributes of any massive transformative purpose, and these are also the things that will explain to you why it's not just your a mission statement or something like that, because mission statements just don't have all of these things. And I'll start by sharing, I love to share one of my favorite MTPs that I've ever encountered, and most people haven't seen it, but if I was to tell you that and this is not my MTP, but if I was to tell you my MTP is until every child is well, if I just met you, then you're like, whoa, that's powerful. What are you doing? What are you working on? How are you doing that? I mean, you're probably going to lean in and engage, because most people can identify with that massive transformative purpose. And so if we start with something powerful like that in our mind, and we also go into our workbooks and and we grab this page, you can start to make some notes here in your own mind about whatever it is that you're doing, whether you're building a consultancy, whether you're launching an agricultural program, which I heard one of those earlier, and you can start to write what you think about each of these attributes, about those MTPs, as you go. And please keep those things in mind. And one of the tools that we have to help you do this, you can see here, this is continuing along all of the attributes in the next page. So this is just meant for you to sketch little notes. Nobody needs to worry about getting it perfect or right today. Just put anything that pops into your mind in these little fields as you go through during the session, okay? Now, before I go into the tools, I want to make sure I make it clear what an MTP isn't. An MTP is not a vision about the organization itself. It's not a mission about how to or restrictive to future pivots. It's most certainly not a marketing slogan. These are the easiest to spot when you encounter them, because they feel like you're being sold to a lot of times. If they're super slogany or marketing-y, it's super important that it's not about you. It's about the future state, effectively, of the people that you're serving, and inclusive, meaning it's about we or us. And then ultimately, as you would imagine, it's not about the business. Your MTP is way bigger than your business. You might end up with many businesses serving your MTP, or evolutions of your business over time serving your MTP. So there are a number of questions that you can ask yourself as you are trying to get to your MTP. When I was in the breakout room earlier, there was a person in there who said that they were really struggling to make their MTP. So I hope that with the combination of the worksheets and the tools I'm about to share, that will get you unstuck. I'm actually quite certain that it will be able to. Okay? So the first question I want everybody to have in their mind, and keep these questions in mind as we go through, is, what do you really care about? I didn't say what do you care about that your company might care about, like profit or something like that. What do you, the founder, the leader, the boss, the person, really the person, really, really care about? And jot that down in here. Because if you're trying to build toward an MTP for something you don't actually care about, it's going to be very hard. This is true in any business, but it's going to be very hard. And then, so I'll give you just a second to think about that. So in my case, I really have spent most of my adult life helping, using technology to amplify things, to move things forward, to grow things, to scale things. And I really care about helping others be able to have that same capability. In recent times, it's AI is the tech everybody wants to talk about. But there are many, many technologies. And I think that that's one of the things I care about deeply, is empowering people with technology. So now, if you start to map that on your company, ask yourself, what is your company's purpose on this earth? And that's a really interesting question, because I didn't say in your hometown or your region or your country even, but to think bigger. And if you want to think really big, assuming SpaceX is successful and life becomes interplanetary, would your purpose continue even if life became interplanetary? Again, it's massive. You need to be thinking outside the box and bigger here. So what is your company's purpose on this earth and beyond? Next, what does the world hunger for and why? And no one can answer these questions for you, but I know, for example, right now, people are looking for a little bit of levity, a little bit of order, and a little bit less chaos sometimes. So some of these things might play in. MTPs can be contextual to the time in which we are, and therefore they can even evolve and change over time. So when you look around you and you think about all these things, your company's purpose, what do you really care about? And then you think, gosh, what does the world really need? What does it hunger for? And why? That can really start to guide you along your way. Questions are fine along the way. Thank you, Daniel. Daniel asks, what if your MTP changes along the way? I would say embrace that. Because if you don't, well, then you're going to be right back over here working on something you might not care about. Now, I hope that it's not too manic. You're not changing your MTP should not be changing every month or every quarter. These things tend to stick around for years once you get them right. Okay, so it's okay to change. Yeah, Ikigagi Bash is a really, really nice framework for some of this and thinking about some of this, because it's that intersection of what sort of makes you happy and all the things you should do, the three lobes of Ikigagi. So let's see. Next, here's a fun one. Oh wait, here we go. What would you do if you could never fail, and why? So we want to be bold. We want to be thinking well ahead. We want to, sometimes, as I said in my answer about experimentation, we want to embrace failure. So what would you do if you just knew? You knew, like, Superman's not going to get hit with a bullet. You knew that you could never fail, and why? Would it make you be more bold if you were bulletproof? That can help you. That can help you come up with your MTP. Here's another question. What would you do if you received $1 billion today? And I mean this quite literally. No taxes, $1 billion drops right into your bank account, and you can spend it however you want immediately. It's 100% liquid. And why would you do that? When you talk about money of that amount, it's not an easy question. It's not as easy to spend $1 billion as you might think. In most cases. So, unless you're building rockets and things like that, then it might not be that much. All right. So now, if you've answered all of those questions honestly and with some degree of clarity, then you might be starting to come up with version 1 of your MTP. The key thing here, when you fill out this field, don't stress if it's too long, if it doesn't rhyme, if it doesn't seem like it makes any sense. The next thing I'm going to show you is really cool. It's going to help you a lot. Now, I did ask around a little bit for a couple, and I don't have, so I might just say, Kevin, if you can help me out here, who might be the first person who would put up their hand to tell me their draft MTP right now, if you have one? Do you see anybody there, Kevin?
So I don't see any hands, but if you want to unmute yourself and share your draft MTP, that would be awesome. There's John.
Oh, there's John. Thank you, John. John is also one of our OpenExO Pro members, and he comes to the masterminds every Wednesday. So I love seeing John here. Thank you, John, for joining.
My MTP is awakening humanity to consciously create for a better future.
Okay. So let me grab that. Okay, so here we go. Now, let's get some help from AI. So, John, I'm not trying to actually change your MTP just now, but we are going to use that as an example. And I've received a couple more that, depending on timing, we might run through there. So, thank you to those folks who DM'd me their MTPs as well. But we'll start with John's. Okay, here we go. So there's two primary tools that I really want you to walk away from today's workshop in your back pocket. Number one is a tool called Alex. Alex is a chatbot that we have trained on an immense amount of information about EXOs, MTPs, successful case studies, and on and on. It's really, really powerful. When you first go to this URL, which I will put here in the chat for you, meeting group.
It is there.
Oh, thank you, Kevin. So if you go to that URL, I think you are required to have a free EXO pass only to use Alex. So it's just having a sign in will get you access to Alex for free. And the way I always tell people to get started with Alex is just to go ahead and click random excerpt. It's the easiest, quickest way to get a feel for what this particular AI likes to do. And it will tell us, this is all live demo, by the way, so I have to wait. This is it thinking. Alex is more of a thinking model than an instant on kind of tell you right away. So what this has done is it's gone through every bit of material and it's decided, remember I said random, it's decided to share an EXO Sprint case study of Grupo Cuerva with me. And it's given us a really nice quote from the CEO of Grupo Cuerva about the EXO Sprint that they ran. And this excerpt highlights how leadership, backing, and employee passion fuel cultural revolution. So that's really cool. But Alex also can help you with your MTPs. So I might say, hey, Alex, my MTP, well, here, I'm gonna reset the chat. The next thing you can do, by the way, is once you do random excerpt, is if you click tell me more, it will just go super deep on that particular topic. Or if you're reading the book right now and there's something that the author says, Salim or Peter, or say in the book and you agree or disagree, put that in Alex and have a chat with it. It's as close as you can get in that moment to talking to Salim or Peter. It's really, really cool. And that's one of the reasons we created Alex, was to sort of scale access to the minds of the people who wrote the book, which is Peter and Salim and Mike Malone and about 80 other OpenExO members all contributed to the book. So you could ask Alex, what is an MTP? And it has a lot of knowledge built into it about MTPs. Now, when I'm trying to compose an MTP from scratch for the first time or revise one, it might seem counterintuitive, but Alex is not the only tool that we have and the only one I would use. And so you can see here, great question. It's going to tell us all about MTPs. This is going to be many of the things. And it went and it grabbed 3 examples: feeding the cities of tomorrow, bring back extinct animals, money without borders. All really interesting MTPs. And it tells you about where that is in the book. So you should be able to go find that. Alex is an unbelievable, super deep resource. I really would encourage you all to give Alex a go. And you may start to see Alex popping up in more places. We're doing some fun experiments. Now, there's another tool called the MTP Genie. This one is currently an OpenAI ChatGPT GPT. Curse them for their naming conventions. But it is a really powerful tool. And if you were just getting started and say you filled out those forms in the workbook, you could come in here and just click this button, the first one on the left. How can I get started making an MTP? And it's going to go through, and it's trained on a very different set of knowledge from Alex Although, well, I should say Alex's knowledge is a superset of what MTP Genie knows, but the MTP Genie is hyper focused on being an assistant or a consultant or an agent, if you like, to help you craft your MTP. It will literally walk you through it in great detail, step by step. And that's why we really want you to fill out that workbook so that you're prepared if you come in to talk to Alex, or sorry, to talk to the Genie. Now, what I said was, I'm going to grab John's. So I'm going to say my MTP, not trying to co-opt your MTP there, John, is, oh, nope, that's a URL, not an MTP. And okay, here we go. I got it right here. Here we go. So John's MTP was here, awakening humanity
To consciously.
create, yep, a better future, right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Is it good? Pretty simple. I mean, you don't have to overthink talking to some of these AIs. These AIs, by the way, get smarter and smarter almost every week as we upgrade the brains, if you will. This particular assistant or agent got a pretty big update about a week ago. So if you've used this before, you might want to come back and try it again. So your EMTP, Awakening Humanity to Consciously Create a Better Future, is already resonant and evocative. You're tapping into a deep collective aspiration. So let's pressure test it with some key MTP qualities. It has several strengths. You can see here, massive, transformative, timeless, and inspiring. I like that one. It feels, John, like something you would proudly share, and I know you do. So that's awesome. Possible refinements. Now, one of the fun things about an MTP is it's really good if they're memorable. That one I shared with you early, I ever since the first moment I've heard it, I've never forgotten it until every child is well. It almost rhymes, it's almost poetic in a way, and it really fits. So if I just come in here, there are built-in commands to the Genie. This one says make MTP memorable and shorter, and it does this with a little bit of a hack that I taught it around English syllables. So if I just type that command, MM, it's going to say, awesome, let's take your MTP and sculpt it into something short, sticky, and unforgettable, and hopefully under 15 syllables. So these are the suggestions that it's making. Awaken humanity's creative power, right? Create the future with consciousness. That was pretty good. Spark humanity to build what's better. The neat thing about this one is better never ends, right? So it just continues. You can always be better. So that's a nice little trick there. Empower minds to shape tomorrow or unleash conscious futures for all. That was hard to say. I don't know if I would do that one. But again, John, I'm not showing you these to tell you to change your MTP. If you're happy with it, you're happy with it. It's good. But this is one of the tools that you have available. And then there's also a lot of other commands in here. Kevin, how am I doing on time, please?
We are up on time.
Okay. Very quickly then, if you, at any time, you type the letter K or tell it, say, show me the menu, it will show you this menu. And I really wanted to leave you with the fact that there are two fun games in here. There's one called the MTP Cocktail Party, and there's one called MTP Mad Libs. And it will literally help you play a game. Mad Libs is super fun if you want to do this with someone. The cocktail party is actually a simulation of what it would be like. You can see here, all you got to do is type in the letter P. It's a simulation of a process that's on the MTP helper tool that's in your kit that you got today that explains and will play act you testing out your MTP at a fictional cocktail party. So it's a really interesting way to pressure test your MTPs. So with that, Kevin, and everybody, I hope you got some notes down in your workbook and you taken these two URLs. And that after this, you take a minute to go talk to the MTP Genie or talk to Alex and explore your own MTP, even if you already have one. It can be really, really revealing. Thank you.
Thank you, Kent.
Awesome, Kent. And so I would also like just, with a show of hands, how many folks here feel that they have a MTP, whether it's a 90% 90% there MTP. It would be great to see that, either real hands or okay. It is good to see a bunch of hands in the air. Maybe we should have had some music here. A lot of hands, in the air. That's really good to see, and it is just so vitally important for an organization to be an exponential organization. Now, you can leverage the ExO attributes without having an MTP, and we have examples of that, unfortunate examples of that out in the world, where organizations have grown tremendously, potentially even exponentially, without that. Although what you tend to see in those organizations is that they do sort of fall off over time, as there's no real purpose behind the organizations. And so with that, I want us to ultimately move on to look more deeply now at the other ExO attributes, and ultimately to look at, well, where is it exactly that you stand when it comes to the ExO model. So I'm going to bring up the workbook once again, and I just need to find the right page here. Where are we? Okay, so I'm going to quickly share my screen, and Kent and Salim, it would be great if the two of you could quickly just drive through the ExO attributes. If we start with the scale attributes, and Kent, maybe you can kick things off, just sharing a little bit more about staff on demand.
Oh, sure. So staff on demand is described in great detail in the book. Kevin, you might even put the link to the online version of the book, because it's just open to everybody to go check the chapter while we go. But staff on demand for me is one of the most critical attributes to master, because it enables an organization not only to scale, hands, bodies, eyes quickly, but knowledge. And a properly implemented staff on demand system will bring knowledge that is outside the organization into the organization, with the concept of the ability to store it like a battery. And if you do that, then you create a lot of resilience for the knowledge that you're paying money typically to acquire from outside resources who aren't like on your payroll, so to speak. They'll be contractors, there'll be consultants, there'll be advisors, could be your investors, could be anybody. This can be your staff on demand. And then a not as well considered version of staff on demand is, say that you outsource your email to Google. Almost everybody does. Google and the staff that runs Gmail is your staff on demand, and you pay a small fee per user per month to have that. So they're actually part of your company if you think of them as staff on demand. And so what you start to realize is, if you sort of change your mindset to consider staff on demand this way, as bring the knowledge in, keep it, store it like in a battery, a knowledge battery, if you will. And then also those folks that work for you through SaaS interfaces or other are also part of your staff. Then you start to interact with them differently. You treat them differently. And it's a really important mindset shift.
Absolutely, Kent. And so we then jump into community and crowd, and I'll take this one because it's a big part of my role here at OpenExO. And just what is super fascinating about these attributes, and perhaps they should have been 2 attributes. I know, Salim, you've said that before, but ultimately, crowd is pretty much how can you tap into the power of the crowd, whether that's through crowdsourcing, maybe crowdfunding, but the larger crowd has massive power, right? Those sort of jelly bean experiments, right? When if you ask a crowd how many jelly beans are in this jar, generally the average is quite close, even though everyone's pretty off. And then community is one concentric circle closer to the core. And in fact, staff on demand can be one concentric circle closer, and then your core team. But community can be so powerful for so many different elements of your business. There are businesses out there that are leveraging community for their R&D, that are leveraging community for their marketing, that are leveraging community to gather data. And so how can you leverage a community based off of a really strong MTP is what community and crowd is all about. And I mean, I think the best example is how Ted built this community and then unleashed them on the world with a simple 10-page document that said, this is how you run a TEDx event, and went from 2 events a year to 10,000 a year, purely because of community.
Can I drill into that just for a second?
Yeah.
We use this analogy a lot, right? So go back to when Chris Anderson is thinking about rolling out TEDx, and he gets his team together and he says, a normal aggressive plan would be, we're going to roll out 5 events this quarter, 5 the next quarter, 5 the next quarter. And if you run that out number, maybe 20 a quarter over a year or two, you end up with 1,000 or 2,000 events. But by launching an MTP and giving this script out to the community and saying, go run it, if you meet the criteria, you end up with 20,000 events over 5 years. And there's a great thought experiment. If he just said to the original team, we're going to run 20,000 events in the next 5 years, they would all have left the room. They would have quit. They said, you're a lunatic. You can't possibly do this. There's no way we're signing up for this. And he would have lost the team completely. So there's a great distinction in the power of an MTP plus the other attributes, and letting the community or whatever run with it and take it over.
Couldn't agree more.
Absolutely, Salim. And so next is AI and algorithms. Kent, maybe you want to dive into that.
Sure. And just if you want to play along, this is the book online. We'll post the thing. We used to call it algorithms, and then over time, as artificial intelligence has hit the public eye, as it has since November 2022, we call it artificial intelligence and algorithms. The thing to remember here is that Gen AI, which has sort of come on the scene since November of 22, isn't the only method of artificial intelligence. There are many. I like to continuously remind people of that. There was ML and AI before ChatGPT, and there still will be new versions of ML and AI coming. In fact, some of the upcoming most interesting things we're seeing are a rehash of reinforcement learning that we would have heard more about in 2013, 2014, and 2015, and later as AlphaGo and other variants of that one beat people in various games. That's going to change things dramatically. The thing from an EXO perspective that I'll say here is when you start to combine the attributes like artificial intelligence and algorithms, because you're implementing something straightforward like ChatGPT as a call center assistant or sales team assistant or agent to help people be more effective and have sort of 10x the impact with the same amount of time or less, that's what you can get here. But when you do what Salim was just saying, when you start combining it with other attributes that we'll go over, like dashboards, if you take a look at Uber, community and crowd, they combined Uber, pre-ChatGPT. Basically, their big innovation at the core was to have an algorithm that dispatched a driver instead of a human. And that is who everybody was effectively working for that was driving Ubers, and it was matching up the driver and the rider. That's an incredible platform use case of algorithms, AI and algorithms in a pre-ChatGPT world. So I've given you 2 examples there. Being current. Yes.
Yeah, I want to make a quick comment here. A big difference between the first edition and the second edition of the book over the 10 years, we learned the subtleties and the nuances and the interdependencies of these different attributes. So for example, GE trained 60,000 managers and executives on lean startup thinking, and it failed because they didn't implement autonomy. And there's no point giving people experiments that they can run if you don't get them to let them design their own experiments, right? And so the interdependencies become very, very powerful, and Kent really nails it. A lot of companies are succeeding by just taking 2 attributes and intersecting them together, right? So for example, Uber is using staff on demand, but that's literally just a proxy for AI, because once we have self-driving cars, then the self-driving taxis will become the staff on demand. And essentially, you just keep the model going, the price drops dramatically, and you push out harder. So important to think of some of that stuff.
Kev, I want to highlight a question in the chat from Arcana. You see that one?
Yes.
Arcana asks, how do we know which attributes to pick from the left and the right? The first step is what you're doing here today, is to become aware of them and how they might impact your business. The second step is to begin to run a formal kind of sort of prioritization based around business needs. And this will begin to surface which attributes most closely pair with the needs you have. And then those needs, you'll be able to then even look at the exponential technologies that might be available to apply to the implementation of projects, which we'll call experiments right now. So what you might do is run through that type of an exercise. Now, look, OpenExO has an entire program called ExO Ready that does that. And if you're interested in that, Kevin will talk more about it later. But the point is that you just basically you're doing it right now. Is what I really want to share, is you're already doing what you need to do. Asking that question is the best step you could be on.
Absolutely. And I think one thing which we actually forgot to mention is how the fact that the scale attributes are actually attributes focusing outside of the organization, right? So they're saying, how do we tap into the abundance that lives in the rest of the world? So staff and demand, it's people outside, community and crowd outside, algorithms is data, all the data out there, leveraging assets that are not owned by you. And remember, with these leveraged assets, they are physical assets, they are intellectual property assets. Just think about all the things we leverage every day. Kent was showing Alex today. Alex is leveraging an asset that someone else built, the underlying sort of brain behind Alex.
Yep.
And then engagement. It's all the people outside, your customers, how are you engaging them? So everything on the scale attributes is all outside the organization and tapping into abundance. And then on the ideas, this is about how to manage, right? So internally, how are you actually managing all that abundance? How are you focusing inside of your organization? And so we tend to say, you need an MTP and try and start with 4. And looking at trying to balance out the ideas and the scale attributes, but also what Ken and Salim just shared, right? Which is the fact that there's massive intersections between these attributes.
Kevin,
and
I always tell people the attributes themselves are assets. And if you want to implement the leveraged asset attribute, combine 2 of those assets together and see what you get.
No, absolutely. And so if we just finish off here with the ideas attributes, so interfaces really is all about what is that interface that you have with your customer, right? If that interface is face to face, the only way to scale a face-to-face interface is to add more people. And so how do you really get that interface to be extremely scalable in nature, so that your organization can scale rapidly. Then we have dashboards. This is all about knowing what's happening in real time, and dashboards and experimentation are quite closely linked, right? We spoke a bit earlier about experimentation. Kent, I know you mentioned how the scientific method's really important. I think the one thing we see so often is how people create experiments that they already want. They know what the answer is, and so they're trying to push, to get to a certain answer. And that's not experimentation at all. And Kent, I know you're really passionate about really proper hypotheses and really properly experimenting as an exponential organization.
Yeah, it saves time, Kevin. You want to be able to go quickly, and if you run a fairly rigorous experimentation protocol, obviously leave space for interesting things and luck and kismet to happen. But, at the same time, you need to get to the result as quickly as you can so you know how not to spend your time and resources. It helps you focus. We do have a hand up, Kev.
I do see we have Len's hand up. So Len, you want to unmute yourself and ask a question there?
Yeah, maybe more of an observation, but it's interesting the point of view that you use that sort of scale is your business or my business on the outside facing, and ideas would be my business on the inside facing. What just came up for me as an interesting meta idea is that every piece of the ideas attributes can also be formed with a view to the scale attributes. So how do I make my interfaces? Do I have to do them myself, or can I use staff on demand who are specialists in an interface and community management, right? So I actually go out and hire an application or a team that's expert in global community management. I don't actually have to have those interfaces myself. Same for communities out remote. So it's an interesting meta idea that even on the inside, I can build my inside system thinking about the abundance that I can tap into on the scale side. So
you got it.
It's all sort of fractal when it gets, and then that's just mind blowing too. That's what makes it exponential. Everything builds on everything else in the same pattern.
Yep. You nailed it. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what we'd like to just move on to next is just quickly, if you can grab your workbook and look at all of the attributes and just on a scale of 1 to 10, 1's being I'm nowhere with this attribute, and 10 being we're killing it with this attribute. If you could just ultimately just rate yourself quickly. This is quick and dirty, not meant to be too scientific at all.
Don't overthink it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first number that pops into your head, just let's take 30 seconds just to put a number in each of the boxes next to the different attributes there.
And what is the question that do we have to understand what that means, or just that you get it?
So within your business, are you leveraging staff on demand? If you're not at all, it's 1. If you're like, yes, my entire team staff on demand, it's 10. So yeah. Awesome, Kent. I see a countdown timer came and went.
Oh yeah, no, if you like that, I'll run it now. Okay, I think you clarified some questions. So here we go.
Yeah.
Time starts now.
Perfect.
You're right. We should have music. I did load some. I just don't think it's piping through.
You need Jeopardy music right now.
Yeah, exactly. You want to hum it?
No, nobody should hum that ever.
All right, here we go.
Okay.
2, 1, 0.
Okay, awesome. And then what you will see in the workbook following on from this is what we have done, and there won't be time to go through this today, but this is for once we're done today, each of the attributes. We have a number of questions that you can ask yourself, that you can answer to really get an understanding of where you are when it comes to each of the attributes. And so what we're going to do now quickly is we're going to jump into another breakout, just a 5-minute breakout where with your partners discuss which ExO attribute you would implement immediately. So early, right up front, it was one of the questions, but maybe some of you were really fuzzy. We hope you have a bit more information. So we're going to go through this breakout where you're going to be able to speak with your team. And when we come back, we're then going to use the remainder of the time for any questions around what you've discussed, around the attributes, around how you can now take what you've learned today and actually implement it. We'll look at our toolkit that we've also shared with you and how you can use that. But I am going to open up those breakout rooms now. and we will see you all in just around 5 minutes time, and just going to recreate the breakouts here, and yeah, we will see you in 5 minutes time. Hey, Enzo, how are you doing? You're muted there, Enzo. Perhaps you went into a room all by yourself.
I retard because I don't understand the conception, but it's no problem. I return to join this time. Excuse me.
Okay, that is perfect. If you want to stay here and you want to have a quick conversation, we can also do that. Although I do see Horatio, who was in your room, has just left to that room, but maybe he will come back. Hi there, David. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Sorry, I had to step away for 10 minutes, so I'm jumping right back in.
No worries, David. I'm surprised you're here. I mean, the book you own, is so dog-eared, but you're still learning, always learning.
How did you know I had the book?
I
got my original pages from 2014.
Yeah, no, I mean, Salim spoke about you. So when he saw when you met him there with
Probably Joe Polish.
At the Genius event, I think. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I've been a fan of Salim's since I met him in 2014, and yeah.
So continuously still using the model on the daily.
Oh, yes. Yeah, it's embedded in our business. It'd be hard to take it out now.
David, we got to see you in the weekly masterminds. You got to reach out, let Kevin tell you about that.
Okay, yeah. I know I've seen them on my calendar, and I don't really know what they're about, but tell me right now if there's time.
We'll let everybody come back in 15 seconds. So just every single week, Salim, myself, and Kevin run a mastermind, and in that mastermind, all of our pro tier members who are on that journey, and many people at different places in their journey of becoming, or helping others become EXOs, are there. And we're literally like EXO customer support. We're cheerleaders. We explore exponential technologies. Just yesterday, in the mastermind, we had one of our actual mastermind members who works for a very notable quantum computing company sharing about what they're thinking about and doing in quantum, which was awesome to hear that right from the ground inside the company. And so we do all kinds of things, but ultimately, like Kevin said earlier, our job's to make EXOs, and that's just where we're really, really feet on the ground, running, making EXOs every day. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's good to see you in person. I saw the original video, David, from the conference. I helped edit it, actually, the one that went out on YouTube.
Oh.
Yeah. Perfect. So some people have come back. I actually had the time wrong, so I've given people 1 extra minute. I thought it was going to be 60 seconds when I clicked the close, but it was 120. So we have about 45 seconds before folks are gonna come back. It's great to see everybody who is here. And we should have everyone back.
Oh, yeah, that's funny. I just saw the prior comment about using Suno. I actually have created a bunch of music with Suno that I often pipe into my meetings. For some reason, Kevin, my music that I pipe in is not playing through the Zoom on the other end. I have no idea why. I'll have to figure that out later.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Great. So someone was still having a conversation when they came back. Maybe we want to finish that thought, or share a little bit about what were the attributes that were most common here. It'd be great to hear from folks, which of the attributes it is that you are looking to implement, or if there are any questions that you might have in terms of implementing the attributes.
Well, there was a question in our group that had to do with dealing with the immune system of an organization. And I was just in the middle of answering that when we popped back in. And really, knowledge is the precursor to experience. The more knowledge you have, the better your experience is going to be. And that's really the foundation for dealing with an immune system response. Is there's fear of change. And fear is just the mind saying, I need more information so I don't have to be fearful. So it's all about information and getting as much information out there to the organization to minimize that immune response.
Hey, can I share one quick thing to that? Just real quick. This is Jeff.
Sure, Jeff.
Yeah, one of the things when in building a lot of big data solutions for decades, the dashboards and algorithms really was my way of really responding to that, right? So whenever I was dealing with an immune system, what I was trying to also do is immediately create a report card or a dashboard to deal with that immune system. So in dealing with the mind shift and accelerating the time around scale ideas, dashboards became a very powerful weapon for me, or tool.
Absolutely. Awesome. Gijs, I see you have your hand up, and I hope that's how you say your name.
Very well. Yeah, you're one of the few who managed to pronounce the G. I always say to my international friends, just call me G. Yeah. So hi guys, nice to meet you. Thanks for the great presentation. So my MTP is making people healthier, happier, and live longer, leveraging health tech, and then specifically not ending up doing, let's say, working on 3 digits behind the comma, but really having underpinned along the lines of Atiya's work. I
love the way you're living the MTP right there.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's an amazing hack. I can advise it to you all. If you're behind the desks a lot, these kinds of meetings are perfect to have a little treadmill behind your desk. No, so the attribute that I'm trying to incorporate as much as possible right now is community. So there's a very vibrant and live community offline. We've managed to create that, and it's very and highly engaged. But we in the past, I'm operationally not active anymore in this company, and I don't want to step into much anymore operationally. But I'm really we need to leverage technology there to bring that community online and expand from there, because we've got like two assets, one in Barcelona and one in Amsterdam. So there's a great opportunity there to leverage the community, not only for informational purposes, obviously also to connect and let them engage with each other, and on a deeper level work on let's say systemic isolation or the nihilism that is going on in the world right now. So that connection needs to be brought. That brings me to leveraging the second attribute, which would be staff on demand. I'm shouting it out. If anyone has experience in really bringing an offline community online, wants to take that on as a project, and roll it out, hit me up, because I need that person.
Well, send us that question. I know two people who I could introduce you to.
Oh, amazing.
And then, I want to, sorry, your question?
Yeah, where do I send it to?
Just send it to me at OpenExO, Kent@openexo.com. Because that way I'll remember to introduce you to a couple of folks. Happy to do that. I think one of the best things we do at OpenExO is connect people, and we do that in our premium tier, and we do that a lot in our pro tier. I just want to point out something you said, and Salim, please weigh in here if you wish. Community is a form of staff on demand. So they both live here on the right-hand side. But if you can figure out how to externalize experimentation into the community crowd as staff on demand to drive innovation back into the organization, you achieve ridiculous scalability. Now, IP controls, flow, managing people is hard when you do that. But if you can tie those three attributes together, it's an incredible triangle of scalability for innovation.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Amazing.
Awesome. Len, I see your hand is up there.
Just wanted to piggyback on Kent's comment there, just to the point of scaling it again and using all the other attributes. If anyone wants to chat about a small company here in Calgary called Chaotic, I can tell you the story of how Chaotic used their community management platform globally to save Lego from bankruptcy.
Could you repeat that? I missed the first part.
Basically, there's a small company that manages communities globally that Lego engaged, and through that community management, they created the best-selling products of all time that saved them from the brink of bankruptcy 2 years ago.
Oh yeah, that's right. I saw a YouTube video somewhere about this. I think there's a video out there on that.
Yeah. So the little company in Calgary, and we actually lived that through with them.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So we love to hear stories like that, and so again, Kevin, share more about this as we're beginning to come into the latter parts of this workshop. That's what we talk about every single week. We talk about stories like that. We help people with stories like that. We connect people to implement stories like that. It's really good. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I will just quickly share my screen again, and jumping right to the end of the workbook here from today, which is, well, what really should the next steps be, as this call does come to a close, right? And so within the workbook, there are a few things that you can use. So obviously, reflect and apply, and then keep learning. We've shared the book Exponential Organizations 2.0. We also have a ton of resources that we made available at our resources link, and then you can also, of course, chat to Alex. And that's a great way for you to continue on. You can join the movement if you just create a profile at openexo.com. You can become a part of our community on our premium tier. You can join our weekly networking calls where you can meet amazing people from across the world, or building exponential organizations, or helping others to do exactly that. And then you can also, go pro. So, take our ExO foundations, and then also on our pro tier, we have that weekly mastermind that Kent was speaking about. And so what I would recommend when this call comes to an end, for you to actually say, well, what is that one action I'm going to take this week? What is the one conversation that I will have about exponential thinking? And then what is that one area that I really want to go deeper in? And this is super important that you actually do take action out of this call. And part of that action, before we jump into the final round of questions, part of that action is leveraging the ExO launch toolkit. So this is a toolkit which we've made available to you as part of this program today. And within the toolkit, you will be able to find your exponential quotient. There's a section to finalize your MTP. There's links to go through the ExO Foundations course. So if you have never done that, it is about a 4-hour course on the foundations of exponential organizations, diving a little bit deeper. There's also a prompting guide for Alex. So Kent showed you all how you can leverage Alex, but perhaps you want some help. What should you ask? What are the prompts? Well, there's a guide there for you. And then there's a 12-week journey to becoming an ExO. Becoming an ExO won't happen overnight. And so this is, what can the first 12 weeks look like to implement an MTP plus 4 ExO attributes? And to do that, we've shared our ExO canvas with you in the document. We've shared all of our ExO attribute tools as well. And then we end off there with how we can help you here at OpenExO. So this is a great document that you can use, that you can leverage to actually really take yourself to the next step in terms of being an exponential organization. And so I will, that has been shared with you, but I'll also put it in the chat. And Salim, I don't know if you want to share a little bit more before we go to the final few questions from the floor today. Well, I go find that document, because the one that I was sharing there is not the full document. I clicked on the wrong one and did not notice. It's a lot longer than 16 pages.
Couple of thoughts. Couple of thoughts that, if you don't mind, don't post this publicly, but I just want to share with the group so you're aware. Let me share the slide. This is kind of one of the examples I use when talking about how much of a difference the ExO model makes. Let me know if you guys can see my screen. Can you see screen?
Yeah. Yes.
All right. This is a great metaphor, an example here. TED is one of the obvious ExOs where Chris Anderson took it over, and he did 3 things when he took over.
Salim?
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. Your screen, your personal screen is mirrored, so we see the next slide as well. We don't see this.
Yeah.
Swap.
Yeah. Let me share that one.
And WhatsApp's up there. You might want to close that. I saw what you just said about me on WhatsApp, Salim. No.
Boom. Does that work? No, that's the wrong one again.
Desktop no, that was right.
Hang on,
do you have like 10 screens there? What's going on?
I've got one monster screen that's like 49 inches wide, and so it just shows up. How's that? Better?
You just press play.
Gwazi?
Press play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
That's good.
This is a great example of the change in thinking that can take place. So TED is the original poster child ExO that we used to talk about. Chris Anderson took it over, and he did 3 things. He established an MTP, which was ideas worth spreading. Then he put all the TED Talks on YouTube for free, leveraging rich media. And then he allowed anybody to go create a TEDx event. And it went from a single person conference, a single conference of 1,000 people, to like global media brand in a few years.
Right? The slide we see is Gwazi.
Yeah. Hold on, I'm getting to that. So we used TED as a kind of a poster child event, but in the second edition, we came across this company, Gwazi, which is really fascinating. So they sell used cars. Okay, started like 10 years ago, and it took about 2-3 years to get their model working. And what they do is they show up at somebody who wants to sell a car, and they gather 250 data points around the car, like video, audio, photographs. They take an audio of the engine and run it through a machine learning filter. And by the perturbation and the noise of the engine, they can tell exactly the quality of the engine. And then they come up with a price that they think the car is worth. Let's say it's $10,000. They show it to the seller. They say, we think your car is worth $10,000. We'll give you 10% less than that in cash right now. Seller goes, yeah, here, take the car. Then they go to somebody who wants to buy the car, show them the same price transparently, and they go, we'll sell it to you for 10% more. That's their model, okay? In 7.5 years, they captured 80% of the used car market in China, okay? I'm just going to repeat that. So they added a few of these attributes, and they went from launch to 80% market share across China in 7 years. And that's an EXO. Right. And let's note that used cars is not some Silicon Valley gaming, social media, digital thing. You're dealing with like physical stuff, but by enabling it and kind of augmenting the right way and analyzing it the right way, boom, you can have massive industry dominance in a very short order of time. That's the positive side of the before and after that's possible. So I'm a pause there.
That's a great example, Salim. Thank you. Yeah, so one of the amazing things, I think one of the interesting things about going forward from today is I know we go quickly through the workshop and the workbooks and everything. So please take that pause after today, sit down, fill in anything else you think about. And if you don't have something to put in there, ask yourself why. Write that question in there. That might be your next step. And you have all the tools you need available to you between the AIs and the bots and this workshop and the workbooks and the toolkit to just go and start building an EXO as you go. If you do find you want help, reach out. Kevin will provide the ways to do that next, I think. But I just wanted to point that out. We really do intend to arm you well in this workshop to go and make that transformation, because that's our goal at OpenExO, is to make EXOs. And we're doing that to try to transform the world for a better future as an MTP. So it's very interesting. So Kevin, I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I have just put in the chat a link which will take you to a form to sign up for a 20-minute consulting session with our team. So if you're like, okay, this is great, I've worked on this, but I really need a little bit more information, you can click on the link there, or you can scan this QR code over here, which I guess let me spotlight myself. So you can scan that QR code, and that'll take you through to a form where we will then be in touch with you to arrange a time. In that form, we're going to say, like, where are you and more or less what time, and then we'll be able to ensure that the right person from the team can connect with you. And so really that's about taking the next step. We want out of this call for you to build an exponential organization. This is called the 10x shift, because we need to shift from that 10% incremental thinking, to 10x thinking. And so that's really what this is about. And so that's very much the next step. Within all the other documents, a lot of people in the comments have been sharing, asking, how can I connect and how can I be a part of this? In the documents as well, there is how to become part of the community, which is as easy as going to openexo.com. And so with that, we will move to some final comments and questions from people. If you really found this extremely good or interesting, please do share that. I'm also going to pull up a survey. We are always experimenting, and we're always trying to learn from that. And so as we close out today, I will ask if you can complete that as we jump into Asim with your question there.
Hi, thank you. Hi, everyone. So my question is, are you seeing this framework being used in the education space at the moment, lower and higher education?
Oh
and
my
how
God.
are they adopting it?
Oh my God. No. And the reason is that education and academia have the worst immune systems in the world. Well, second worst. Religion has the worst immune system. If you try anything disruptive in the education space side, you get attacked very, very quickly because we're very structurally resistant to change. And I could go on for ages around Singularity University, et cetera, et cetera. Having said that, there's a whole bunch of very disruptive models that are emerging. The question is, how do we get those adopted broadly? Okay. For example, China, I think, just authorized AI as a major training for every student and let them go ahead that way. We're seeing emerging markets where we're advising a couple of companies that are working with students in countries in Africa. And they're trying to create $100 AI or get an AI that for $100 will teach a kid from K through 12. Okay, there's some powerful models. We ran an X Prize called the Learning X Prize, which was an Android app that teaches any kid functional literacy in 18 months. And that was one. And so there's open source Android models that allow you to do that. The huge challenge to anything educational is the resistance in the immune system, but the bigger issue is there's a systemic change happening between what we call push education, where you get a bunch of kids and you try and cram algebra into them, mostly they're thinking about lunch, to what we would call pull education, where when you take on a new job or a new project, you pull down the education for what you need, right? And that systemic shift, it causes a huge amount of issues for people. How do you navigate that? I'm going to stop there.
Cool, thank you for that. I know it's going to be a challenge. Would you say that it would be a good idea to approach parents and go live from a home?
Yes. Let me point you to something. Yeah, let me point you to something called Nicole Dreisky, her name is, and the project is called, I can't remember the project, but she solved the problem between kids being addicted to their digital devices.
Exactly the problem, yeah.
And that's scaling very quickly. It's an amazing model that they found. About 10,000 kids have gone through it, and I'm literally blanking on the name of the project.
Cool. I'll look into that.
That's a good question. Really quickly too, I just dropped a couple of references into the chat around education, things I've seen that are super interesting and actually exponential in their implementation in a variety of ways. Some yes, some no. It's always a mixed bag of tricks. You got to talk to the parents. I'm a parent of 3 young children. I can tell you schools aren't going to fix this. No way. Private, public.
It's exactly the problem I've got. I've got a 23-year-old, but I've got a 7-year-old, 8-year-old at the moment. And I'm trying to homeschool her and kind of build her away from all these devices and kind of restrict her and build a routine out. It's a huge challenge.
Yeah. I'd love to think we can find inside the OpenExO community a way to start to address this systemically, because I've got a 15-year-old, a 12-year-old, and an 8-year-old, all boys. My God. Yeah. I mean, it's insane.
It's a different world they're going to go in, right?
Yeah, every single day it's something crazy coming from the schools, and it's like, no, that's not what we need to teach them. But anyways, I don't want to get off on a tangent. Look, we've also got a lot of our pro members here, Kevin and Salim. They're the folks who every single day are literally putting the shovels in the dirt and digging and building their EXOs and EXOs for others. I want to invite, if there's any pro member who would like to share, there may or may not be, but is there any pro member who would want to put their hand up and share a little bit about how EXO has been for them? Hopefully it's good. But yeah, that would be amazing. I see John with his hand up.
This is an amazing community. It's really the 3D application of a quantum shift in consciousness in terms of business and application in real world. It's just an amazing community. I highly recommend joining the EXO, OpenExO, and joining our mastermind group and our networking group.
Quote of the day: 3D application of a quantum shift in consciousness. Quote quote of the day. Thank you, John. I'll have to think about that one for
We've also
many
got
hours.
Jennifer there with her hand up.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Blaine, and I don't have a quote of the day to follow up on John's, but I will say the group has been amazing. I joined a little over a year ago and just fell in love with the support, the people, the mindset, and just the way of thinking. And I actually went through the program, got certified as a consultant. I've been applying this in my own business as well as helping my clients also think about this differently, including a nonprofit that I had started. So it's amazing. And definitely, if you can join us, we'd love to see you at our weekly meetings.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jennifer. That's really great. We have hit the top of the hour. I know, David, you did have your hand up earlier. I don't know if it was to talk about education or not.
I'm happy to stick around for a few minutes longer if people want to chat.
Hey, I would say this. I'll say this briefly. I've run medical centers, millions of encounters, and hundreds of doctors work for me. So you want to talk about immune system, that it's there. And I created a system for taking care of our own employees in 2008, and I could not get this thing off the ground anywhere outside of our own company. And Salim, I met you in I think 2014, and you had mentioned the concept of Peter of MTP, and I just came up with a simple MTP that was something like, I know what it is now, I don't remember exactly what it was, but just making healthcare accessible and affordable. So it was the North Star. So when somebody would come at me with an objection, it was always about, okay, whose idea is more in the direction of accessibility and affordability? And of course, there's a lot of revenue made in the opposite direction. So that was the source of my immune system fight, was everything was seen through the lens of how is this going to disturb revenue. If I get rid of waste or unnecessary activity, well, that's revenue for the company. So that was the immune system. So I really found that having an MTP, it sped up the end of the war, if you will. And it resulted in me concluding that I just need to create another company and ignore that other company, create a separate one. Wow. And I've since sold it to the same people who didn't want to come along. But the concept of a virtual, take the value that we create in a brick and mortar setting, especially around logistics of medicine and healthcare, and virtualize it, significantly democratizes it and decreases the cost. But that MTP was the pivotal moment for me, because it allowed me to, like, very simply in my arguments said, are you for this direction of accessibility and affordability, or is your idea against it? And most ideas in the immune system of the incumbent was about how to make more money, getting people to do more services and to give access to people with money. So it wasn't about more access to everybody, it's for more access to people with money. And it really shined a light on that concept and I quite frankly, I didn't like my company when I started talking to people about the MTP, because I realized that how much my company was about making money. Not that that's bad, but it wasn't good enough to just be about that as the primary thing. So that MTP idea was a pivotal light bulb, like accelerator through that incumbent immune system for me.
Very cool. Dave, you and I met at the in Phoenix, right? A couple of years ago.
Yeah, with Joe Polish's event.
Yeah, nice to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you too.
David, that's an amazing story. And when you look in the mirror, sometimes you don't like what you see, but you took an amazing series of actions. So well done.
Yeah, I don't know if I can pipe in for a second, Kent.
Yeah, I'll go for it.
Yeah, I also met Dave through Joe Polish.
Hi, James.
Hey, Dave. Dave just said something I think that's important there, because I'm in the venture capital space, and I'm a huge fan of ExO because I'll say force. If you want a check from us, you have to use the ExO system in the company, or we won't invest. Because it's been that transformative for the companies. But what we found, something that Dave just said, what I think's made the biggest difference is not the attributes as a way to make money. or drive the growth of the business, but it's the MTP as the way to get everybody, every business we invest in, has to have a pivot. They have obstacles, they have challenges, they have problems. And the people that stick with it are the ones that create huge value. But they don't stick with it for the opportunity to create money usually. They stick with it because they understand the real purpose, not the, hey, I started this business because I found a great idea or a gap. It's that MTP that's become the real foundation of everything we've done. And I like the way Dave said that. If it was just about making money, that wasn't motivation for him.
Yeah, I'm about to go into a meeting right now with a very high-paid leader that's been with me only a month, who's struggling with his team. And he's asked me to come in, and I'm leading with our MTP in an expanded way about, okay, let's just start with why we're here. Why are we all here? And I got 4 leaders who are upset at the new leader. Plus, he set it up with a whole team. So I got about 60 people in the room. But I'm leading with it just to set the tone of why are we here, and then we'll deal with the issues.
Well, by the way, for all of you that are coaching other companies, we have this ExO Ready program that in 2 weeks we can kind of show you how to do it, where you lead your client through a process. And in 2 weeks, they've got a full roadmap for what to implement on what scale. So let us know if you're interested in that.
And the other thing I'll just say, because we work with companies and we introduce them to the system, these little 2-hour, I'll call it, crash course can be overwhelming. So I'm really glad that you guys are offering that, follow-up call. And, I hope everyone that's on this is going to take advantage of the follow-up call. There's huge value in that.
Yeah.
So if you just, I hope no one's just sits through this 2 hours, never opens the work. I hope you open the workbook, finish every page, and then have the call and ask the questions for the areas where you get stuck, where, maybe you didn't quite understand it, because, this was a torrent of information. And I know, I took 2 pages of notes and I know the system.
You nailed it there, James. Look, book a call. We're happy to talk to you. Nothing stops you from going over to the website and clicking the sign up button on the top right, picking the right level for you. And if you're in pro, then you can see us all again next Wednesday at the next mastermind. We'll be there. We're there every single week. I mean, we've literally put the system together so that anybody can go at their own pace. We try to meet you where you are, and we really, really want to help you be an EXO or help others be EXOs, or both, right? So Lynn has his hand up.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to put a plug in for the EXO community itself. For anyone that might be a little bit still skeptical or cynical, this is not a book marketing activity to sell more books. No. I've been with the EXO
give a book
community
away for free, Lynn.
Exactly. I've been with the EXO community now for like a decade. I was just saying with Salim, and it's like it is on its own path using the attributes itself, and the community is globally resilient, is how I would say it. So to plug in all the things that you're hearing about are not just people on a high because something's really good's been recently discovered. It's been a decade of really kind, purpose-driven, generous, open people finding tribe all over the world. And to belong to it, whether you're active once a decade or once a day, it has incredible value just to be a part of it, even if it's basic. And I love the way Salim has shifted the world from there are companies that change and companies that are dead to there's companies that have AI integrated into their very being, and then there's companies that are dead. You have no choice about being part of this, so you might as well be a part of it, otherwise you'll be dead. So I would say the EXO community is probably the kindest, most generous community that has this message versus the tech world or the consulting world or the education world or even the religious spiritual world. Like people who think they know where the world is going come to the community at OpenExO to find out what's really happening. And so I do too. I just wanted to say that.
Appreciate that, Len. We happen to find ourselves at the cutting edge of both the technology side. I do a podcast with Peter every week that you guys should check out here and there. We just interviewed the Dire Wolf CEO when the guy who created the Darvista, what was he thinking? What's the business model, etc. But that is one piece of it, and how do you organize and build value is the more important part of it. And so we're hoping to kind of intersect those. We believe we're about the only folks that do that effectively on both sides, and you kind of need both to do it. So super appreciate the comments. All right, any other questions? Otherwise, I got lunch I got to go grab. And 3 more meetings like everybody else.
Yeah, exactly.
Bye-bye.
I think that's it. It was really great chatting with everyone, seeing everyone. As James said, take up the offer. Take the next step. Don't just be here to listen. And it was wonderful chatting with you all, seeing you all. We will also be sending a follow-up, sharing the recording for folks as well. And so thank you to everybody who's been here. And we're really looking forward to helping you, build that exponential organization. Ken, Salim, I don't know if you got any last words before I hit the end call button.
Just thank you.
Go be an EXO.
Go be an EXO. Thank you. There you go. You heard it from Salim. Do that.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers, everybody.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Take care, folks.
Bye.